Welcome back, my friends. It is a case very familiar to Minnesotans, and now, thanks to Unsolved Mysteries and a great new podcast, the story is going quite literally worldwide. So here's the deal. 20 years ago, Josh Guimond disappeared after leaving a party on the campus of St. John's University, and despite an intensive search, he's never been seen or heard from since November 9th, 2002. In the new podcast called Simply Vanished, host Josh Newville is investigating his disappearance, uncovering never-before-heard details, and that includes something that happened to a different student around the same time Josh disappeared. Listen.
We have confirmed that the following story originated in November of 2002. It occurred approximately the same time that Josh went missing. A student we are calling Anthony was walking back to his dorm from a party in Flynntown when a four-door pickup truck or SUV-type vehicle pulled up. The four occupants of the vehicle told Anthony that they had a friend who was hurt or killed by the stone bridge, and he should get into the truck so they could safely get him back to his dorm. After Anthony climbed into the truck, the occupants drove him to a swampy area. When Anthony asked what they were doing, they told him it was time to pay the price for the ride.
And asked for something completely inappropriate, to say the least. That's just one of the new revelations in the podcast. Audience, please welcome Josh. Hi, Josh. We made this booking, and the executive producer, Jeff, said, you got to listen to this podcast. And I said, absolutely. I could not stop. I listened for a couple of hours, called Jeff, and I said, I want the whole back of the episode to be you, because I was just enthralled with this, as is now a big chunk of the population. Let's start here, for people that aren't familiar, who was Josh?
Josh Guimond was a 20-year-old college student at St. John's University. He was born in southwestern Minnesota, grew up in Maple Lake, and he was on his way to becoming a future political leader. I mean, he was just a brilliant kid at 20 years old. And
everyone, when you hear news interviews with family and friends, usually the cliche is, oh, he was really good. But Josh really was. I mean, everybody that you talk to said the exact same thing about this guy, that he was going to be a politician. I mean, I think his father said he was going to be the president of the United States. Now let's talk about your fascination, just so we set the ground about who Josh was. What was it about this case, about Josh, that made you want to do this podcast?
Well, growing up where I did, western Wisconsin, Twin Cities area, being 5-6 years younger than Jacob Wetterling, then being in college when the whole smiley face killers theory kind of started to blow up everywhere, I've been fascinated by missing persons cases for a long time. And so this case in particular had been one that I've been following, and Josh reminded me a lot of myself at that age. He was class president, stuff like he wanted to go on and be a lawyer and go into politics potentially, and that's stuff that reminded me of me, and I just couldn't understand why this case hadn't been solved.
And how long have you been working on this?
Actively, I've been working the case since March of 2022.
Before we get into the details, and believe me, like I said, the whole back half of the show is going to be this. Have you been surprised at the reaction to this? Because let's be clear, this isn't the first podcast that has dealt with Josh, right, about his disappearance. Have you been surprised? Because the reaction has been massive.
Unbelievable. This was supposed to be a nights and weekend side project. I'm a full-time lawyer, and so suddenly it's gotten to the point where, the calls, the emails, the listeners, it's just been unreal. I couldn't believe it.
I want folks to listen to the podcast, so we're not going to go through detail to detail, but I do want to ask about, because a lot of people, they do these types of things and they go, we have new details, and then you listen to the darn thing and it's like, that's not a new detail. We actually have new details here, and one of them, Josh, is weird things that happen to other students around the same time, even, correct me if I'm wrong, that night or earlier that day, because Josh disappeared after going to a party, playing cards with a friend. He walked across a bridge on campus and disappeared. Talk to us a little bit about the other things that happened to these other students.
Yeah, so first of all, and it's very, very minor, but I want to just clarify, we're not sure that he walked across that bridge.
That's right, you're right, thank you, yes, yes, yes.
But there's been a lot of speculation that he has, and that he did, and he very well may have. But yeah, in that area, there were other college students the night before Josh's disappearance. In that same 2-week period, we have 4 confirmed reports from that month that other men tried to lure men into vehicles at that time. And they're different situations, but eerily similar. And then there are other reports from other years surrounding, and none of this information had been known prior to us launching the podcast and getting the public support. The public's help has been phenomenal in this case.
And there's a swampy area, right, Josh, that comes into play that I had never heard about. I mean, I was here at Channel 9 in 2002. I remember folks covering the case. Tell the folks about the swampy area.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, that area is surrounded with swamps and woodland. And one of the incidents that one of the college students described is that he was taken into a vehicle and men brought him to a swampy area. And you kind of played a clip of this.
Yeah.
And he ended up running away and running into the woods. They chased him for a time with flashlights. There were some items found, very sexual items found in a trash bag in a nearby swampy area from the night that Josh disappeared. We're concerned that he may have been targeted and that may have been related.
From the night, everyone, from the night. Okay, as I said, Josh is sticking around. We're going to talk about the new Unsolved Mysteries episode that's all about Josh. That and more, and what it can mean for the case when we come back. Back after this. Welcome back. We're talking to the host of the podcast Simply Vanished. Go get this podcast. True crime, people love it. My mom loves it. Go download this. You will not be able to stop. How much cooperation and what has it been like to work with Josh's family?
Josh's family, I can't think of people that I have more respect for who have been through so much and have persevered in 2 decades now of not having really hardly any information as to what happened to their child and their family member. But they've been great. They've been very, very helpful, and it's been hard for them, but they've been phenomenal.
Since your podcast and the Unsolved Mysteries, which again we will get to, that's a whole other horse, have new people talked to police? Do you know?
Yes, especially in the last few weeks, as more and more information has been released. People are calling the police more and more, and people are calling us. It's great.
Really? Are you optimistic that within the next 5 years or so, maybe not solved, but we'll know a little bit more? Are you optimistic?
I'm optimistic that we are closer to it being solved right now than we ever have been at any point in 20 years. Does that mean it'll happen? It's going to depend on how much more information the public can come forward with.
Josh, let's talk about the computer. I know executive producer Jeff and I said I think that's episode 3. There was a computer, Josh's computer, and again, we all have to put our mindset back to 2002. You said that, and I thought, absolutely, we got to think of technology and how we used it. So put yourself back there. Talk a little bit about it in TV quick terms, the computer and why it's so important of what has been found on it.
Yeah, there was a lot of information. Josh was using the internet, and the police didn't lock down his computer early on, and days later they finally did. Unfortunately, stuff had been deleted. Internet washer had been taken to it, but there is just a treasure trove of information on there. We found out that he was talking online. We found out that he was looking up certain things. All of that is crucial to the investigation.
And this is the part where I was by myself in the car. I go, ooh, we have about a minute in the segment. The music skipping. You could see on the time that Josh's computer, after allegedly the time where one theory thinks he disappeared, Josh's computer was playing music.
Yeah, there's a question as to whether he perhaps did make it back to his dorm room that night, did access the internet, and did use it to play music and perhaps chat on AOL Instant Messenger.
Which was another thing, too, that you will find out in the podcast. He was on these messengers, and you can't tell exactly what the messages are. They're encrypted, and only Yahoo has it. But you can, the timeline of him online messaging matches a lot. You match the evidence a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. We have much more after the break. As I said, we're going to get into the Unsolved Mysteries episode about Josh's disappearance and why it's leading to hundreds of new tips. That's right. Simply Vanished is available right now wherever you get your podcast. The next episode comes out next week. We'll be right back. Stay with us. More with Josh. How many episodes do you think it'll go? Welcome back. I mentioned the reboot of Unsolved Mysteries. We actually talked about it on the show right when the episode dropped. They did an entire episode on the disappearance of Josh. Here's a little bit of that.
I think the most frustrating theory was that Josh just disappeared on his own free will, that he chose to disappear and kind of take a pause from life because his friends and I knew that wasn't what happened. We knew that he didn't just disappear and take a sabbatical from life. That's not who he was. That's not something he would have ever done.
Since that episode started streaming on Netflix, the Stearns County Sheriff's Office says they've received more tips in 10 days than they did the past 2 decades. Yeah, we're back with the host of the podcast, Simply Vanished, right there, Josh. Have you felt a wave of new tips since Unsolved Mysteries?
In the first 7 days following the release of the episode, I've had 650 emails and phone calls. It's been 60,000 more downloads. It's just been unreal. I have not been able to, for those who are waiting replies from me, I will get to them.
You just answered my next question, because I was gonna be like, how do you start to go through those tips?
I mean, it's not, a lot of it's not tips, right? A lot of it's just questions or thoughts, and yeah, it's tough. I need help.
I was talking to Josh during the break, and say what you want. I, as a listener, came away, and I purposely only listened to the first 3 because I wanted the story to unfold for myself like it will for you. I walked away from the first 3 frustrated by the fact that some people in Josh's life have not come forward that could help. Not maybe solve, you put this so well, maybe not solve the case, but eliminate some possibilities. Why do you think that is?
I think it's 2 things. I think it's one, that first part that you just said, I don't think they realize that they can be helpful. Very often people think if they don't have the answer, if they don't directly know something about what happened to him, that means they don't have anything helpful. No, they might be able to help with something really small that helps us connect another piece to another piece. The second is, people in Minnesota are just afraid sometimes to get involved. And
they don't want to get involved.
Right.
Do you, have you talked to more people, now that I asked why they haven't, have you talked to more people in his orbit since the podcast started?
I've been very thankful that several people, including some of he had 5 roommates that I wasn't able to previously contact. Some of them have even reached out since then. So
okay, as a listener, that's very exciting. Let me tell you, you will see why so some of the actual roommates.
Yes.
Have they been a little reluctant?
At first,
yeah.
Yeah, and I think over time when they realized that we're actually trying to figure out what happened to Josh and not just tell a good true crime story, then they've been more helpful, yeah.
Before we talk about what's next for you, I want to ask, just on a human level, I asked about the family, how's his mom and dad doing? It's been tomorrow's 20 years. How are they doing?
This is a really, really tough time of the year for them. They cope in their own ways. They are very grateful for all the attention and the support that they've been getting from the public. And I think they're hopeful that this is a real opportunity. This is a real moment that might actually lead to something. That,
again, you're always one step ahead of me. I was going to ask do you feel that they have a little more hope than they have the last 20 years, that they'll get some answers?
I don't want to speak for them because they are very, very good about speaking about themselves and their son.
Yes, they are.
But they really do seem to be, in my estimation, and I've seen them change over as we've been doing this, they do seem to be a bit more hopeful right now, yes.
What are you working on? Simply Vanish is going to continue. You have one more episode, right? That's going to be released next week of this season?
Yes, we're never going to close out a season until the case has been solved, but we are doing another episode on Josh next Monday. And then from there, we're going to start covering other unsolved cases, including doing once per week individual cases, and then we'll revert back to another deep dive season at some point next in 2023.
Did you have an idea? I mean, you're a big-time lawyer. Did you have an idea that you'd be also a big-time podcast host?
No. This was supposed to be a hobby. The amount of attention, the amount of listens, I've just been stunned by the interest in this case.
Well, take the compliment. It's that popular because you do a really, really amazing job. You're as someone that does a broadcast and you want people to come in. The production, the producing, the narration, everything. You put together a hell of a podcast, and I'm glad that if anybody that you're on this case, because I firmly believe you will help solve it. So, thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Give it up for Josh, everybody. Simply Vanish is available to stream right now. As I said, wherever you get your podcast, there's a logo. I even like the logo. A new episode drops next week. We're going to be right back to wrap things up. Stay with us, everybody. Back in a moment. Thank you, my friend. That was great.